fans in? Was it your version?
In my bail statement, it says there that I went onto the balcony, my lady. I think what was interpreted there was that I went to get the fan that was on the balcony, partly on the balcony. At the time that my counsel brought my statement to me, they read it out to me. I agreed with everything that was in it, so that was at a point what I said there was the truth, and at that time it was what's interpreted that I went onto the balcony. What I'm saying is I never went onto the balcony. I got the fan that was on the balcony.
I hear what you're saying. So the fact that it's in your statement that's onto the balcony, you've now admitted it's clearly wrong. I just want to know why.
I admit that it's incorrect that I went onto the balcony. I didn't go onto the balcony. I collected the fan from the balcony.
I hear what you're saying. I'm asking a different question, which is why? Why is there this difference?
My lady, as I said at the time, that I wasn't there when my statement got drawn up. I wasn't the one who drew it up. I wasn't. If I could look at my bail things, I'm sure there would be things I'd add or more details. But at the time when the statement was made, my counsel advised me that it doesn't have to be an exhausted set of facts, that it needs to state what the facts were. I'm sure that what they wrote there, they interpreted as my explanation to them. Maybe I didn't pick it up at the time that they said I went onto the balcony, or maybe when I read it, I interpreted it as them bringing. I interpreted it as me getting the fan from the balcony. But as I said, I never went onto the balcony to bring the fan in.
You see, it's a bit strange because Mr. Roo challenged Warrant Officer Botha about this version of yours. You were present when Mr. Roo cross-examined Warrant Officer Botha.
I was present, my lady.
And at page 137,
can you just refer to it as an exhibit?
D, my lady.
Yes,
D, page 137, my lady. Are you there?
I am, my lady.
You see, this is an interesting page because this is where Mr. Ruth is really saying the same thing that you're saying. I put it to you, the version was available, the affidavit was signed before we saw the state's charge sheet and the heads of argument. It could be fact so. Then Mr. Botha said, no, I can't. Mr. Roo, sir, I put it to you, there has been no adaptation. It's there. Before we saw what the state is going to hand up, it's there. He's saying, okay, and this is the important one. But now Mr. Roo is challenging Warrant Officer Botha. But now you have it, and you see his version. Now, did you care to test his version in the following respect? You go to the house, you walk to the balcony, you're outside on the balcony, and you bring the fan in. No, I didn't. Why would he challenge him on your version if that's not your version?
My version in my bail, I didn't say I was outside on the balcony. It said I went to go fetch the fan from outside, from the balcony, which was outside. As I've said, I understand Mr. Roo challenged Warrant Officer Botha at the time. I can maybe ask that you ask my counsel why, but I don't remember.
Okay.
What I told them was the truth. What they put in the bail,
So, Mr. Roo made a mistake.
what they put in the bail testament was what they interpreted my truth to be on paper. I'm not saying Mr. Botha made a mistake.
No, not Botha, Roo.
Mr. Roo made a mistake then of putting.
Why would he go that far? Respected senior counsel, why would he put that version in so many words? He said, why don't you outside on the balcony and you're bringing the fan in? Why would he make that mistake if he did not get it from you?
It's maybe the way that he interpreted it, my lady. That's the only
But the
understanding.
mistake here was his.
Well, that's it.
No, listen to the question. The mistake here was Mr. Roo's, not yours.
That's correct.
Now, before we carry on, there's just one aspect I have to deal with, and that is your plea explanation. You remember your plea explanation in court? Not in detail, but you remember that there was one handed up and read into the record?
I do, my lady.
And you remember that it was a detailed 115 plea explanation?
I don't recall what a 115 is, my lady.
It's a plea
but
explanation, sorry, it's my mistake. The plea explanation.
I do recall that, my lady.
Now, I'll deal with lots of these, but I'm going to deal with one this afternoon. And that is, it's page 11 of the record, my lady, of the court record, my lady. And that is, I'm sending across just the one page, and that's the only page that I would use at the moment. So do you have page 11 before you at the moment?
I do, my lady.
At line, let's start at line 18. It will also be demonstrated during this trial. Whilst Botha was the investigating officer and tasked with preserving the scene, that the scene was contaminated, disturbed and tampered with. That is your plea explanation as a reason why you're pleading not guilty, am I right?
That's not the reason I'm pleading not guilty, my lady, but that is part of...
You'd have to speak a little
I
louder.
beg your pardon. That is
Get
not
him
the
soft.
reason why I'm pleading not guilty, my lady. I'm not pleading not guilty because the scene was contaminated, disturbed and tampered with at all. I think that's an extract that's taken out of the entire document that they read out.
Yeah, but you see, that's a plea explanation. That's what it is. I explain my plea. My plea is not guilty, and this is what I say. Is that the reason why you pleaded not guilty or not?
This isn't the sole reason why I pleaded not guilty, and it isn't the reason why I pleaded not guilty, my lady.
Is it a reason? I never used the word sole reason. Is it a reason why you pleaded not guilty because the scene was contaminated, disturbed and tampered with?
No, my lady, I plead not guilty because what I'm accused of did not happen.
Yes. So although it's called a plea explanation and it was read out as your reasons why you plead not guilty, you never took this into account in arriving to your plea.
I beg your pardon, I don't understand the question that's been posed to me, my lady.
When you had to decide, will I plead guilty or not guilty, was this one of the factors you took into account?
No, not at all, my lady.
I
When
see.
I pleaded not guilty, that was already at my bail. We didn't know that the scene had been contaminated, disturbed, or tampered with. We only got to learn that through the photos that the state showed us, that the scene had been tampered with and disturbed and
Okay.
contaminated. So this wasn't part of my plea at my bail. At my bail, I already gave my plea on the charges that were leveled against me.
This is technical, but we leave it for argument. Let us just deal with the essence of it. Is it still your version that the scene was tampered with?
Yes, my lady.
Where?
My lady, I'm advised through my counsel that there will be people that will come forward. I've seen many of the photos that the state has handed to me where there are massive inconsistencies, where items had been moved, where things weren't as they were left in previous photos.
It's unfortunately not that easy. Really, it's not that easy. I'm asking you. It's your plea explanation. You in the box. You tell me, sir. Where was the scene tampered?
My lady, we can go through all the photos.
Yes, please. Where do you want to start? Show me. Tell me one thing that was changed. Tampered. Do you know what tampers mean?
Mr. Null wouldn't mind giving me the definition of tampered, ma'am.
It's with intention changing things. What was changed on the scene?
My lady, we can go through the photo files and I can show you many things that were changed.
Let's. We've got time. Tell me what is the tampering that bothered you the most?
There wasn't. I think, in a case with this much severity, many things, anything that gets changed would bother a person involved. Throughout the photos, there were many things that moved. There were cell phones in my bathroom that moved. My firearm had moved. The cricket bat had moved in the bathroom. The discs in my room had moved. The fans cords had moved. The curtains had moved.
Wait. Let's take it slowly. Let's take it slowly. We will deal with all those things, Mr. Pistorius. Let's just take it slowly. You say the cell phones were moved. Am I right?
That's correct, my lady.
Which cell phones are we referring to?
Referring to Reva's cell phone and one of my cell phones, my lady.
So the police moved Reva's cell phone.
Someone moved them, my lady.
Where was it before it was on the photograph? Do you know?
My lady, there's evidence that's been given and statements that have been made where police officers talk about the two phones being next to each other and then one phone being taken at one point. If you zoom in on the photos, you can see that the outline from where the blood touched the phone had been moved. One photo, there's a cell phone cover on the photo, and then the cover's been taken off to make it look like there was a misunderstanding where one was a cell phone and one was a cover. But in the one photo you can clearly see the camera through the whole of the cover. On another one you cannot.
Okay, and I've got all that. So you say Reva's cell phone was moved. Where was it before the police moved it? Where did you put it up?
My lady, I don't have the photos in front of me.
Can I just ask you the question then? The Reva cell phone on the scene, was that at a different position as where you left the cell phone?
I don't remember where I left the cell phone, my lady. What I'm saying is that between photos that were taken and tended to us by the state, things changed.
Okay, so you looked at photographs and you say that the state tampered with it. That's all. You cannot remember where you put down Reva's phone after you used it.
I'm not saying the state tampered with them, my lady. I'm saying things were moved, things were changed. There were people that weren't wearing protective clothing in my house. I saw police officers go up and down the stairs. That's why I talk about contamination.
Please, sir, I don't want to do it every time. I think you've got lots of answers in your head, and you're giving that. I haven't touched the word contamination at all now. We're dealing with tampering. Now you're telling the court about contamination and people not having protective clothing. You want to answer that because that is what you're prepared to answer. Deal with tampering, please. I cannot use the word warning. I'll advise that you listen to questions and deal with them, Mr. Pistorius. Let's deal with tampering. You say the fans were tampered with.
Well, lady, these three words were used in conjunction with each other. I don't think it says the fan was tampered with. It doesn't say the phone was contaminated. It doesn't say the cricket bat was disturbed. It talks about the preservation of the scene and Mr. Botha's task that he was. The sentence reads, "It will also demonstrate during this trial, whilst Buerta was the investigating officer and tasked with preserving the scene, that the scene was contaminated, disturbed, and tampered with." It doesn't say that during my evidence. It will show that. It says during. It will be demonstrated during this trial. It doesn't speak about items. It doesn't speak. It speaks in general. That's the context. I didn't write this document, but my counsel has investigated through experts, through people that they've spoken with. Various things were contaminated, various things were disturbed, and various things were tampered with. I don't have the knowledge of what it was, but I know that the experts that will come and testify, these things did happen.
No. Do you see that?
Were you just 1 minute?
Yes.
Were you reading from page 11?
That's correct, my lady.
Yes. What line was that?
Paragraph 14, my lady.
Paragraph 14.
3 lines from the bottom of 14, it ends the sentence. From the middle of 14, it starts with, it'll also demonstrate, it'll also be demonstrated.
Thank you.
You see, but unfortunately, Mr. Pistorius, I have to get an answer, and we have to go through this. Are you saying that the fans were tampered with? It's your case, it's your plea explanation. I'm asking you.
Would Mr. Nall please just give me the meaning of tampered again, my lady?
You see, that makes it so much more interesting. It's your plea explanation. You told this court.
Well, Mr. It may be his plea explanation, but he didn't write it. So if he wants to clarification about what tampered exactly means, I think he's entitled to that.
But lady, with respect to the court, I'll do it. But lady, but when the state witnesses were struggling with words and things, they were asked and they were said to take responsibility for every word in every statement.
No.
So we've been through a state case. But my lady, I'm not arguing. I will go with that. I will do what the court said. Tampering is you change something on the scene with the intention to let it look different.
Lady, Mr. Nall's asking me if the fan was changed to look different. I remember the fans were running that night. It was an extremely warm evening. According to some of the officers that they had, they said the fans were off. So yes, then in that case I'd say it was tampered with. And in the photo that came up, which the state didn't have a time or a date set on the camera, we saw one of the police officers unplugging the fan to plug in his cell phone. That was a photo taken by the police. So in that respect, I'd say it was tampered with, my lady.
So it was disturbed. Let me just, I have to get this. Are you only referring to that photograph that was taken on the 15th or later, that where a policeman put in his cell phone? You're not referring to the album?
That was not the 15th, that photograph, later. That was a photo where the magazine, the Fire magazine, was still on the bed and it was still half dark outside. And we know that the evidence was that that magazine was taken in as an exhibit that day. And that was the 14th, so it could not have been a photo of the 15th, where Colonel van Rensburg was there at the phone, at the plugs.
Let us just make it... no, I can't. I'll go there later. So, what are you saying about the fans? What happened to the fans? How did the police disturb the fans?
My lady, I say that Mr. Nall asked me if the fans were tampered with. I said they were tampered with. I didn't say that they were disturbed.
Okay. How were they
asked?
What? Sorry. I know. Can you just tell how was the fans tampered with?
Well, in the statements that have been given, nobody says that the fans were on. It was a very warm evening, and in the photo, as I said, that the state gave to us, it showed that a police officer was plugging in his cell phone to the same socket where the fan was plugged in. So that's how I say it was tampered with. The fans were also moved at different points around the room. So in that instance, they could be disturbed.
Okay.
My understanding of all these words is that some items may have been contaminated, some items may have been disturbed, some items may have been tampered with. It doesn't mean that every item was all three of those things. I haven't spent time checking all the evidence, but this sentence says it will be demonstrated during the trial. It doesn't say through my evidence.
I hear what you're saying, but you're now there and it's your plea explanation. Who will give that evidence?
There will be experts that will come and testify
Who will testify about tampering on the scene?
Well, I'm busy testifying to tampering on the scene. I've testified now that the fan was tampered with and the fan was disturbed. We can go through some of these things if the court pleases, my lady, as to what I can show the court, what was contaminated, what was disturbed, what was contaminated.
I hear what you're saying, but you're not answering the question. Who will testify about tampering on the scene?
There will be specialists that will come and testify. I don't know by name, my lady.
Are you telling me that you haven't consulted with these people? And you haven't been told what they will say?
My lady, I don't meet with every expert that my counsel has met with. I don't understand half the information they have. I've no background in ballistics or in forensic compiling of information. I know that people have sat for many hours and looked at the photos that the state has tendered. I don't think that's in dispute that things have changed. We saw in previous evidence where all of a sudden a disc was in the photo, where remote controls were moved, where tissues were placed next to the bed, where wires were moved, where things were in different positions to other photos, where in this bail, Mr. Botha, in his first statement, said that the bedding was on one side. Die beddegoed was op die een kant van die bed, meaning the bedding was on one side of the bed. Yet in all the police photos, there's only bedding shown on the floor. So it is clear that there is contamination. The scene was disturbed and that it was tampered with. In this, I understand that this is my plea, but it says it will be demonstrated what my counsel read in, what Mr. Rue read in. It will also be demonstrated that during this trial, whilst Botha was investigating officer and tasked with preserving the scene, that the scene was contaminated, disturbed and tampered with. It doesn't say in my evidence, and I don't have a clear understanding of the specialists that we have. I don't know all their backgrounds, all their evidence, all their insight and their knowledge to go through these things. We can talk about, if we go through the photo files, I can get a photo file from my counsel and I can see where we've made hundreds and hundreds of notes of photos that compare where things have been moved and changed. But I don't have the knowledge to tell you exactly what was tampered with, what was disturbed and what was contaminated.
After that long argument, do you still remember what I asked you?
You asked, Mr. Null asked me, my lady, if the fan had been disturbed.
No, you're wrong. You see, you argue and you're wrong. It's not my question.
I beg your pardon, my lady, I don't remember his
just
question.
Want to argue. You have recreated the scene. You thought of answers and you want to give it to the court. You're not listening. You're not listening, Mr. Pistorius. I ask you, who the experts are, and have you not consulted with them about the tampering? That's what I asked you. And I'm asking you that again. Give me an answer.
My lady, I haven't consulted with the experts. My counsel has. I've sat in on some of the meetings and listened to perceptions of theirs. I've explained how things happened because I was the only person that was there.
Good.
I've explained to them certain facts.
I'm just dealing with tampering and disturbance. The expert that you will call about tampering and disturbance, who will that be?
I don't know, my lady. It will be up to my counsel. I guess in the coming weeks they will decide who they call.
Okay, so let me just ask you a question and get a straight answer. Where you're sitting now, you don't know who that will be. But you know there will be something.
My lady, there will be people that will come and say that certain things couldn't have been in the place that they were at, and Mr. Volmerans will be one of those people. He will talk about objects in the bathroom. He'll talk about the door. There's some others. I don't know if my council has decided who they're going to call yet, or in which order they're going to call them. When I leave court, I'm extremely tired. I don't really consult with them much. I've given them my version many months ago. We've reworked on it, spoken about it, and they've worked with it with me. But as far as what this part of this plea says, is that it was from Mr. Rue. It says it will also be demonstrated during this trial whilst Botha was the investigating officer, so I guess it's pertaining to whilst Mr. Botha was in charge of my home, my house, and whilst he was tasked with the preservation of my house, that there was contamination, disturbance and tampering.
I'm going to be very fair, and I don't want to use this in argument later. I want to ask you if that's what you meant. You said, I've given them my evidence over months. We reworked my evidence. Is that what you said?
I corrected myself, my lady, by saying we've worked together.
So if you used the word reworked, you never wanted to use that word?
I didn't want to use that word, my lady.
Okay. Interesting that you did, but you don't want to.
I make mistakes, my lady.
Now, let us just have a look at this one photograph. It's on the original photograph, it's 184. In the album, it's 55. It's E55, my lady. Now, those were that's a photograph in album 1. The photograph taken by Warrant Officer van Staden early morning. Sitting where you're sitting, was anything tampered with it?
My lady, I didn't see this room with the lights on in my bedroom that morning, so I wouldn't know what was tampered with. If I had to compare this photo with the other photos that show these items in different places.
So you, by your own accord, if you look at that, there's not something striking out of place or that shouldn't be there or that was put there by the police or something like that.
There wasn't anything I think that was put there. In other photos there shows the TV remote on the tissues. There's another photo where there's a disc that I remember the evidence being told that they found the disc under the bed.
No, that's fine. But apart from that, those are other photos and we'll deal with that. But that photo was taken early morning and there's nothing out of order as far as you know, because you can't really relate it back to the day.
Although I can't relate it back to the day, my lady, I can relate it to the other photos.
It's
I know. Clear that from when the photos were read in by the witnesses, those were not the way that the photos were placed in the file. We went through every photo's properties. We looked at all the times. We tracked the photographer's movements. He came up to my room. At a point, he then left my room briefly, bathroom. He went back to the bathroom, and then for 15 minutes he was walking outside. Then he came into the room. After that time, there were many things in the room that had changed, or in the bathroom. We picked up small things that had changed.
Right.
In this photo, I remember the vest being on the other side of the cord. I don't know if that photo off the top of my head was taken before or after this photo. So I can't say that at this point, if I had seen this that morning, that this is what I would have seen.
That's brilliant, Mr. Pistorius. You really know exactly what the photograph done. You know this albums and times by heart?
As I said, my lady, I don't have the files in front of me. I don't have the time sheet in front of me, but I know that there were photos that were different to this photo.
There, next to your vest, if we could perhaps zoom in there. My lady, may I just point out to higher up? May I just, there we go. What is that? That black, I mean, not the iPad next to it, on a stand.
It's a hair clipper, my lady.
So you have that hair clipper next to your bed. You had it there.
I'm not sure if it was there, my lady. In another photo, it was the hair clipper was on the floor, but not in the stand. It is possible that it could have been there. I plug it into that extension cord to charge, so it is possible that it could have been there.
Okay, so you plug that into charge. And that extension cord is also where you plugged in the fans.
That's correct, my lady.
And you're convinced of that?
The fans were plugged into the extension cord that's behind the bed. On the right-hand side of the bed, there's a plug. I'm not sure what is plugged in there. I'm not sure if it's a double plug. I know that the extension cord that's where the power source was for the extension cord.
You know, that's,
I think,
but we can see it there. That white cable there, that's the extension cord's cable.
That's correct, my lady.
Okay. So and you plug the fans into that extension cord.
I plugged the fans into that extension cord, my lady. If I'm not sure if the clipper was plugged into that extension cord or if it was plugged into the 2-prom plug, which is behind the headboard, but that was usually where I plugged it in, next to my bed.
No, you're right. Can we just go down and just show Mr. Pistorius that is? You see there the clipper is plugged in and the fan. You see that?
I see that, my lady.
There's only one problem with that, Mr. Pistorius. Do you see the problem?
No, I don't, my lady.
There's no other place for it, for the other fan.
The other fan, my lady, if you look at the police photos, was on the side of the room where the TV cabinet is. There's a plug behind the TV cabinet where the fan could have been plugged in. I don't recall. If I may just finish, please. I don't remember which fan was plugged in at which power point, my lady. I had 3 fans. I had 2 floor fans and I had 1 standing fan. A friend of mine came to visit me in January. I lent him one of the fans for his room downstairs, so there were 2 fans in my room. I can't be certain as to if this fan was plugged in here, if the other fan was plugged in wherever, but as far as I remembered it, both the fans were plugged into this power source. I'm not sure if I'd tripped over the cord on the way to open the balcony door, or if the fan was plugged in the other side. I don't have an independent recollection of where the fan was plugged in.
One thing we know is you said, before I showed you the specific plug, you said both fans were plugged in there. That's what you said. Am I right? Today?
I don't recall it, my lady, but if Mr. Null says that is so, then I believe him.
Why can't you recall it? It happened 2 minutes ago. When we started, you said that both fans were plugged into the extension cord. Now you want to say that you can't remember. Why?
My lady, my memory isn't very good at the moment. I'm under a lot of pressure sitting here. It's not easy. I'm defending for my life. And if I tell the truth, and you ask me 5 minutes later again what you asked me, I'd probably tell you the same thing, because I'm not trying to lie. If I say I don't have an independent recollection of where the fan was plugged in, it was something so significant as to where the fan was plugged in. All I can say is that the fans were both on.
It's not so insignificant, Mr. Pistorius. It will show that you are lying. And it's very significant.
I understand the point that it's significant, my lady. It is a significant thing, but the act of plugging in a fan and putting a fan on a year and a half ago, I cannot remember.
But one thing we can agree on, you and me, is that fan wasn't plugged into that extension.
I don't know if I can agree with that, my lady.
So is it possible that it was?
It is possible that it was, my lady. I'm not sure if...
Is it probable that it was? In all probability, you would have plugged it in there.
I'm not sure where I would have plugged it in. I know that both the fans were running, my lady.
Are you telling the court that your other fan's cord is long enough to go in between the legs of that one from the power source in the corner of the room?
My lady, I haven't thought about where I plugged in what fan. I know that both the fans were working, so if the fan's length of the one cord isn't long enough to fit in a power source, then it's obvious that both of them were in the extension cord.
Yes, yes. Let us do that. Now, can we just go to the other photograph, please? This, my lady, will be 187 and 56. I apologize, my lady, it's 61.
61.
Yes, my lady. Now, can you see that the plug of that fan?
I can see the plug of the fan, my lady.
It's a 2-point plug.
That's correct, my lady.
That was not plugged into the extension because there's no place to put it in.
I see it's got a very long cord, my lady, but as I said, I don't remember which power source it was plugged into.
No, but no. That's not the answer, mister. That's not an answer to my question. Question is, do you agree that was not plugged into the extension?
My lady, I've said I don't remember which plug was, from which fan was plugged in which power source. I remember them both being plugged in at the extension. That was the reason for having the extension, was because the cords weren't long enough to reach the wall. So I had an extension for that reason. So as far as I can remember, what would make logical sense to me is that the fans were plugged in. This is not where I moved the fan that evening. I didn't walk and put the fan in the corner of the room with the plug out. So I cannot say if the plug was plugged in at an extension power source or at the wall behind this cabinet. But what I can say is that this wasn't where I left the fan.
Let us just go back to the previous photograph and just zoom into the plug on the extension cord. You see, there is no way that another double plug can be plugged in there. It's a 2 3-point plugs that's available, nothing else. Do you agree with me?
I agree with Mr. Nal, my lady. At the time of this photo, it would be impossible to put another 2-prong plug into that adapter because all the 2 spots that there seem to be available are both taken. I agree with that.
But then you're lying. Then that other fan was never plugged in there or on or used that day.
My lady, I can simply say I remember both the plugs being plugged in there. If I'm wrong, then maybe the one plug was plugged in at another power source where the TV cabinet is.
Let me see. Unfortunately, I have to just deal with this a little further. The other fan, if you never unplugged the other fan on your version.
I never unplugged any fan on my version, my lady. It's possible that when I ran to the balcony to call for help that I tripped over a fan cord. It's possible that I pushed the fan aside. I don't have a memory of moving the fans.
No, but you see, again, I understand it, and we're in the same position where we're creating a version. You never ran from the door. Never. When did you run from the door?
From which door are we talking about?
He's saying, when I ran from the door. Is that what you said?
No, I said when I ran to the balcony.
But did you run from that area to the bathroom?
Yes, I did, my
When?
lady. I ran when I put my prosthetic legs on, I turned around. When I ran from the bathroom, I ran onto the balcony. I pulled the curtains open, I opened the doors and I shouted for help. After that, I put my prosthetic legs on, which is right there where the fans would have been placed where between the fans would have been, my legs were between where the fans were and where the plugs would have been plugged in for the extension. I don't remember unplugging a fan.
But if we look at the other fan, let's say, which is not so, you're trying to adapt your evidence, but let's say it was plugged behind the wall, behind the music center in a plug. That would not have been in your way if you walked past it. And it would not have ended up where it's lying there, on your version.
In my version, the fan was never there to start off with, my lady.
So a policeman moved the fan to there, or somebody moved the fan to there, knowing that your evidence will be that the fan was in the door.
I don't think the police or anyone knew what my version was at the time of taking these photos, my lady. They probably moved the fan so that they could spread out. If you look at other photos where they spread out my duvet, they had to move things. So at no point when they were busy with Hilton Buerta's investigation, until the point that I tendered my statement and during the bail, did they know my version. So I'm not saying that they deliberately moved the fan, because they didn't know the fan was part of where the accident happened, but the fan was moved. I didn't place it there. If I'd brought it in, I faced it towards the bed. I wouldn't have placed it to face the curtains.
I know what you're saying, but you see why it's important is in your bail application you mentioned one fan, and you now over lunch break read your bail application statement, and there's only mention of one fan. Am I right?
That's correct, my lady.
Only in your plea explanation did you talk about fans, more than one. Am I right?
That's correct, my lady.
Why?
Lady, as I said, there were things that were left out when Mr. Null started his cross-examination on my bail. I told my counsel everything that happened, everything that I could remember at that time. It was, if I remember correctly, 2 days after the incident. I've obviously given them a lot more detail since February last year. What they decided to put into my statement was what they decided to put in. They didn't include every single aspect. I understand that they didn't talk of the plural fans. If I could go back, I wish they did. But I can't change my evidence because it doesn't suit me in my bail transcript. I have to tell the truth. So, because of what was written in my statement, if it suited me, I'd stick to everything that was written there. But the truth is that there were two fans. And even if it doesn't suit me to talk about it now, I have to talk about the extra information. The bail is but a summary of what happened that evening. And I'd rather place all the evidence in front of the court now, even if it's not in my favor, because it isn't what's in the bail. And I understand I'll be taken apart because of that. But that is the evidence. I can't change the truth.
Mr. Pistorius, I know that you've rehearsed that answer and you wanted to give it. Let us stick to the answers. The fact is, you agree with me that that fan was never plugged into the power source, into the lead that one can see under the tripod fan. You agree with me as far as that is concerned?
My lady, I believe I've answered this question 3 times. I don't remember where I plugged which fan in.
But that's not the question. I never asked you what you did. Mr. Pistorius, you're not listening. You've got long answers, long arguments. You're not listening. It's not good for you. I will argue this. Listen to the question. The question is the following. Do you agree with me that that fan wasn't plugged into the lead?
Lady, I've listened to Mr. Null's question. I cannot agree with him because I don't remember.
Just go back. Show me, please. Let's just go back to the other photo. That's not. It's. Show me where it was. If you can't remember, show me.
I can't show
Mr.
Null if I can't remember, my lady.
You can't tell me you can't remember. It's impossible. Where was it plugged in?
I don't remember where it was plugged in, my lady.
But it wasn't plugged in there.
Well, at the time of this photo, what I'm saying is that this extension was full. If the plug was plugged in at this extension at the time, then I understand. Then the plug must have been plugged in at the TV cabinet.
Okay.
That is what I'm saying. I say I don't have a memory or recollection of where I plugged in which fan. It was most of the time both the fans were plugged in here. If I had to use a plug from this extension for another purpose, then I would have plugged the fan in somewhere else. What I can remember is I brought in 2 fans that night. I'd put the tripod fan up and I'd put the smaller fan in underneath it. I wouldn't have placed a fan there if it wasn't plugged in.
Mr. Pistorius, let's deal with something else. We'll get back to this. You referred in your plea explanation to this incident or this occurrence as an accident. Is that correct?
That's correct, my lady.
What was the accident?
The accident was that I discharged my firearm in the belief that an intruder was coming out to attack me, my lady.
So the discharge wasn't accidental. Or was the discharge accidental?
The discharge was accidental, my lady. I believed that somebody was coming out. I believe the noise that I heard inside the toilet was somebody coming out to attack me or to take my life.
No. Do you know what an accidental discharge is?
Mr. Nall would like to explain to me what the accidental discharge is, my lady. My understanding is that I didn't intend to discharge my firearm.
Oh, okay. No, then you do. So you never intended to shoot the intruders?
I never intended to shoot anyone, my lady. I got a fright from a noise that I heard inside the toilet. I perceived it to be somebody coming out to attack me. That is what I believe.
No, but we can think that away. The fact that they attacked you never caused you to shoot at them. We can think that away today, on day one. You never fired at the intruders because they intend to attack you. The gun went off accidentally. And please, if you don't understand the question, I want to repeat it because it's day one and it's very important.
May Mr. Nall please repeat the question,
Okay, well,
my lady? I don't understand.
You never fired your gun at the intruders with intention to shoot at them.
My lady, as I said, I wasn't meaning to shoot anyone. I went to the bathroom so I could put myself between what I perceived was danger and Reva. To approach in the time that I didn't have much time to think. I was dealt with a set of circumstances that I was trying to deal with. When I got to the door, I was unsure if there was somebody on a ladder or behind the door.
I'm going to be rude, Mr. Pistorius, but I've warned you before. You're giving evidence, you're not answering. Please, you've had an opportunity, my lady, with the utmost respect. I have to do it. You had your opportunity. You try and give me a version every time. The fact is, did you shoot at the intruders with intention to shoot them?
My lady, I shot because I was, at that point, with that split moment, I believed somebody was coming out to attack me. That's what made me fire out of fear. I didn't have time to think. I discharged my firearm.
No. That's different. So, let's make it easier. Because you feared, you shot at them. Am I right or am I wrong? And you have to, please, this is important.
I didn't shoot at anyone. I didn't intend to shoot at someone. I shot out of fear, my lady.
Mr. Pistorius, please. Okay, let me rather do something different. Are you feeling okay?
No, I'm not feeling okay, my lady.
Okay. Then you'll use it as an excuse. What's wrong?
My life is on the line, my lady. And I need to answer and understand the questions that are being posed to me. I'm trying to answer them in the best manner I can. I didn't shoot at someone. I didn't shoot or intend to kill anyone.
No.
When I heard a noise, I believed that there was someone at that point already in the toilet because I'd heard the door slam. When I heard the noise come from the toilet, I believed that a person was coming out or persons were coming out to attack me.
Okay.
I didn't have time to think about what I was doing.
No, you see, it's not that easy. You know where we started. And the record will, luckily we've got a record. The record will be, I discharged my firearm accidentally. It went off by accident. That's where we started now. Now we moved the full circle And now you say,
Lady, he never said that he discharged his firearm. He said he was asked, what does he mean by an accident? He never said that he discharged it accidentally. It was the state putting that to him. And he then explained his version. It was never his answer.
I'm not sure you're correct, Mr. Roo. I'm not sure you're correct. I have it down here, unless I also misunderstood his answer. I discharged the firearm accidentally.
But lady, then I did not, because I understood it differently. I will listen to it and come back to you in the morning, man.
I agree 100% with the court's note. I have the exact same note. We can listen to it 20 times, but I agree with the court. So now I'm asking you, and we have 5 more minutes, Mr. Pistorius. Did your gun accidentally go off, or did you fire at intruders? It's easy.
My lady, my firearm was in my possession. I had my finger on the trigger. It was an accident what happened. I agree with that. I didn't intend to shoot anyone. I fired my firearm before I could think, before I even had a moment to comprehend what was happening. I believed someone was coming out the toilet.
You see, okay, I'll have to ask it in a way that you understand it. Was the only way out for you to shoot this intruder to protect yourself? Yes or no?
I didn't have time to think about shooting an intruder or not shooting an intruder, my lady.
You know, Mr. Pistorius, I'm going to go through your evidence. It is minute detail about when I go slower, when I go faster, what I do. But just on this point, you don't know. You didn't have time to think.
No,
the court will not accept it, Mr. Pistorius. Let's try again. Let us just get one thing out of the way. Did your gun go off accidentally, yes or no?
My lady, when I fired my firearm, I believed that someone was coming out of the toilet to attack me. I don't know how to put it in a different way. I don't know what the implications of what Mr. Nell is asking me about, if my firearm went off accidentally or not accidentally. I pulled the trigger. At that moment, when I heard the noise, I didn't have time to think about what was happening. I knew that I thought that somebody was coming out to attack me. That is what I thought.
But you see,
it's easy for me to sit back now and think back to that day and what I would have done and what I could have done. And if I had granted all the time in the world. But at that time I didn't. I had to deal with the situation that I found myself in. I believed that I was going to be attacked. I believed my life was in danger. Many thoughts were going through my mind of what could have happened to Reva. There had been people tied up in our estate before and assaulted. I had many, many thoughts. When I heard the noise, I didn't have time to think. So I don't know if by me saying I fired my firearm accidentally, what that means. I can say when I heard a noise inside the toilet, before thinking, out of fear, I fired 4 shots. When I realized the scale of what was happening, I stopped firing and I stood there and I was in shock. I don't know if I fired my
Mr. Pistorius, please, you've given your evidence. And I'll stop you every time now because I've warned you. Why are you emotional now that the question is so difficult? Why are you emotional? What happened now?
Now, hold on.
He's emotional, my lady. May
That's
I just
fine.
ask?
It's fine. He may be emotional. But I don't think you can ask him why now. He's been emotional throughout.
I'll abide by the court's finding and I won't pursue that question. But may I then, and we're almost time for the adjournment, and I'm not going to go away. You thinking of implications of an answer, am I right? You said that on 2 times. I don't know what the implications of Mr. Nell's question and my answer would be. That's what's bothering you, the implication of the answer, am I right?
My lady, I understand that by what I'm saying, it's not just a physical accident. It's not just a physical movement of what happened that night. It's not just a firing of a firearm and the firearm went off by accident. What I'm saying is that at that time, I didn't know what to think. I fired into the toilet door, which was, I believed, somebody coming out to attack me. I wouldn't have had any way, if the person was armed or unarmed, to protect myself.
Mr. Pistorius, I don't know what you're answering. My question was, are you thinking of the implications of the answer? Yes or no? That was the answer, and you'd give me this version.
My lady, if I was sitting here and I wouldn't think of every implication of what I say, it would be reckless. My life is on the line. Of course I think of every single word I say when I'm sitting here.
But Reva doesn't have a life anymore because of what you've done. She's not alive anymore. So please, listen to the questions and give us the truth. And not think of implications for you, Mr. Pistorius. Now I'm repeating the question. Is the implications of the answer bothering you?
My lady, all I can say is what happened. I need to say it as it did happen. At the time when I fired the shots, I didn't have time to think. I don't know if it was by accident. Yes, then I fired by accident. I didn't intend to shoot into, or I didn't intend to shoot at anyone.
You never intended to shoot?
If it's on that basis, I agree. Then I did. Then it was an apology. Then it was an accident in the way I discharged the firearm. I can't say I intended to shoot.
You never purposely fired shots into the door?
No, my lady, I didn't.
Okay. And that is where we'll stop today. But I unfortunately will have to show you something. My lady, I'll be referring to the bail application. And Mr. Pistorius, please open it at page 65. That's Exhibit D, my lady. It's a bail application. Are you there, sir?
I am, my lady.
Line 21. Let's start at line 19, my lady. I'll read it into the record. I felt trapped as my bedroom door was locked and I've limited mobility on my stumps. I fired shots at the toilet door and shouted to Reva. Why would you say that?
That's correct, my lady. That's what I said in my bail.
Why?
I don't understand the question Sanal's posing to me.
Why would you say you shot at the door and today you say you never did?
I think it's obvious, my lady, that I shot at the door.
Okay. So, when you said in your bail application you shot at the door, it's because it was so obvious.
I'm not denying shooting at the door, my lady. I said
did.
I fired at the door. I said I fired shots at the toilet door. That is what I did.
No, so you can't get away, Mr. Pistorius. I just asked you a question. Did you deliberately fire into a door? And you said no. Then I read you the bail application, and now you change. Why?
My lady, it's not that I didn't do it. I didn't say I didn't do it. I said I didn't deliberately do it. I never said I didn't do it.
But in your bail application you said you fired shots at the door. And that was because it was obvious.
No, that's because it was the facts. That's the truth of what happened, and I haven't changed. I still say I fired the shots at the door.
Lady,
that's what I said then, and it's what I say now, my lady.
Are you done, sir?
I am, my lady.
It's just past 3, my lady. Would that be an opportune moment?
Scott, will you join?
I